Hey, somebody's got to separate the wheat from the chaff. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
I seek the finest and the bravest knights in the land to join me in my court at Camelot.
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to create measurable results for people like you and families like yours. I am the Professional Noticer.
Okay, that's really very good. I'd like to try it just one more time, and then we'll call it a day.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. Here, we will talk about anything. All you have to do is ask. I field questions about business, spiritual issues, popular culture, and tackle the odd conundrum like if a restaurant serves red herring, how can you be sure that's what you're about to eat? My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by our friends at Tucker ATV. Shannon and Lisa Tucker. Tucker ATV carries every make and model of Polaris ATVs and the big Polaris side-by-sides like the Ranger Crew, but you just have to experience the showroom. Besides the Polaris everywhere, there's antique displays and beautiful taxidermy, along with an indoor porch. It's just unbelievable. It has a porch swing, comfortable chairs, and books and free coffee, a huge television set. And right now, Tucker ATV has on display for you outdoor guys a pedestal-mounted white-tailed buck from Wisconsin. And it was done by Clint Rickey of Ricky Ridge Taxidermy. Clint is the man who just won the title Best in the World at the World Taxidermy Show. And Tucker ATV has this beautiful, huge pedestal mount by this guy. So have a cup of coffee and come see this buck. It's a work of art. Shannon and Lisa Tucker treat customers like family, which is why folks from 14 states do business with Tucker ATV. Tucker ATV, the small town business with the national reputation. Highway 43 North, Jackson, Alabama. Okay, observations and answers. For the Professional Noticer, that's a job title. But I only deliver observations and answers. You provide the questions. And hey, we would love to hear a question from you. Either write me. The email is theprofessionalnoticer@andyandrews.com or call 1-800-726-ANDY. That's 1-800-726-ANDY. And hey, if we use your question, I'll send you your choice of the guided traveler experience. This is over 8 hours of live video seminar. Or you could choose the 100-Year Parenting, a collection of 53 videos, each between 10 and 20 minutes. This is life-changing, but very, very fun stuff. The quality of your answers can only be determined by the quality of your questions. That's why we depend so much on you. This week, our first question is from Raymond. He's from Washington State. Let's listen.
Hey, Andy. This is Raymond from Washington State. I appreciate you and everyone else involved in bringing this podcast to us. As a sign of my appreciation, I wanted you to know I actively talk about the Professional Noticer and make it my business to get at least 2 people a week to subscribe. Usually, that takes only forwarding the link to one podcast and they are hooked. I will apologize in advance for the question I'm about to throw at you. I already know there's no answer to it, but I would at least like to hear you explain what has happened. Here goes. My question is this. Knowing that our country is more divided than ever, and knowing that it is getting worse, what can be done? Hell, forget making it better. How do we get back to where we were? So that's the question without an answer, but if you could use some of your bottom-of-the-pool thinking and explain to me how we got here out of the blue, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Raymond, thank you very much for the question. And Matt and I enjoy doing this podcast, and obviously we'd just like to get a ton of people listening. So thank you for doing that. And Hey, you don't have to apologize in advance for a question you're about to throw, and I thought you threw it well. I'm not sure I agree with you when you say you already know there's no answer to it. I'm not sure I know what that answer might be, though. So even though I just, man, I don't want to agree with you that there is no answer. I think there is an answer. We just haven't found it yet. Maybe we haven't found the pathway to it yet. But you wanted me to go bottom of the pool on this, knowing our country is more divided than ever and that it's getting worse. What can be done, or how do we get back to where we were? Okay. Raymond, I don't think we're going to get back to where we were. Now, I'll bet if you and me and 10 other guys sat around and we took the 5 smartest women from the Silicon Valley and then the Nobel Prize winning people, if we all sat around and said, how do we get back to where we were? Even if we attempted it, everybody would have different ideas of how that was done. In fact, I think we could assemble probably 20, 30 people, and every single person would have a different idea of what constituted where we were. Forget how we get back there. I don't think most people would agree on what back there even was. Now, I totally hear you when you say that our country is more divided and that it is getting worse. I agree. I'm not really sure what the answer is right now, but I tell you this. Unless somebody goes to the bottom of the pool on why it has happened, we'll never figure out a way to heal what, you're right, has become a growing divide. I think so here's just some analysis, just some thoughts on this. I think that we have become more divided. Bottom of the pool would say we've become more divided because we don't talk anymore. Now, really? We don't talk anymore? Well, we don't talk about stuff like politics or religion or, we don't talk about anything that might offend somebody. We don't talk about anybody somebody might disagree with. I think that's true. We don't talk. Well, how do we avoid talking? And see, I want to stop here, Raymond, and say, when you say, how do we get back to where we were? That, to me, I know you don't really mean getting back there, but it is an acknowledgement that our society worked better in the past. People were nicer to each other. People could talk, have conversations without screaming at each other, could talk and come to some kind of agreements somewhere, and nobody does that anymore. I mean, at least when we're watching it on television, it seems like nobody does it. When we see the news, it seems like nobody does it. So I believe it is true that we don't talk anymore. Now, where does the truth lie? Well, let's ask why. Why don't we talk anymore? Well, one answer could be that we don't talk anymore because, we don't want to talk to them. But even if you don't want to talk to them, I mean, how do you really avoid that for the bulk of the time? I live in a small town. I live in a town with 4,000 people. Everybody knows everybody. Wait a minute. Everybody doesn't know everybody where I live. They don't. They used to. I was growing up, I lived in a town with 30,000 people where everybody knew everybody. But we don't know everybody anymore. And why is that? Well, I guess because we don't talk. And why don't we talk? Because we don't want to. Okay. What is it that could possibly create a a situation where we wouldn't have to a lot. Well, do you know that somewhere along the line, and I don't really know what it is, I think I want to research this and see, surely there's some architectural records, there's some kind of contracting records, and, the American Contracting Society, or whoever they are. I would like to know when it was that people stopped building front porches. When was it that contractors no longer built front porches? When was it that everybody went to their backyard? People used to sit on the front porches used to be huge, and people would sit on the front porch, and the people who drove by would be driving slowly, and they might beep their horn or lean out and holler and wave, and everybody's sitting around on the front porch to wave at them. Somebody walking down the sidewalk would stop in and talk for 15 minutes because everybody's right there. You can't just walk right by them. I mean, when was it that contractors stopped building? I mean, it wasn't the contractor's fault. It was just, people started saying, "Dad, we don't want a front porch. We're going to make a patio, or we'd like a deck on our backyard." And then not only did they go to their backyards, or we go to our backyards, we started putting up fences, and they weren't all chain link fences. There was these big, high, 8 feet tall wooden fences that nobody could even see inside and see what anybody was doing. I mean, your next door neighbor now can come out in their backyard and not even speak. No, nobody feels like they have to speak. They don't even know each other are out in their own backyards. I've talked to several people in the past couple of months, and I know a lot of people who do not know anything beyond their next door neighbors, and I've met quite a few people who don't even know their next door neighbors, and they've lived in the place for over a year. But when you drive your car into the garage and shut the garage door behind you, and then go into the house from there, and you exist inside the house or in your backyard, and the only opportunity to say hello to anybody is in that 2-minute period of walking to your mailbox and getting your mail. Now, here's where I'm going, because this is something I think that is much deeper than this. You said that the divide is there, but it's getting bigger. Well, I think the divide is there because so many people, they just didn't know. They didn't know what to say. They weren't taught many communication skills when they were growing up, and this was the first generation with all the parents that had all the channels and all the different things to do, and nobody ever had to learn the art of conversation, really. And so since it was kind of uncomfortable for them, I mean, they had seen their parents converse. I certainly saw my parents converse. There were only 3 channels growing up, and we only got 2 of them. And so when my parents would have people over or some neighborhood get-together, my parents would say, "You can sit right over there, and you can listen, or you can go to bed. And if we hear you, if you bring yourself to the attention of everybody, we'll take you on to bed. But feel free to sit over there and just be quiet." And so my sister and I spent many a Saturday night listening to the adults talk, and we heard our parents talk to people with whom they profoundly disagreed, and we listened to our parents, listen to other people with whom they profoundly disagreed, and I saw the back and forth. We heard the back and forth. We heard the happy, the joyful jesting in the voices rather than the mean, sarcastic comments. And we would hear, our parents say things like, well, that is certainly one way to think of it. Now here is something that I have wondered. What do you think about this? And then the other person would take it, volley it back across nobody would call anybody an idiot. Nobody would, and amazingly, everybody kind of worked together. But I guess my point is that there's a generation that grew up with our parents having these conversations, and some of us heard them and went forward and had these conversations of our own, but many people apparently have found it much easier just to go into their backyard. And so now the vast majority of people are in the backyard. So here's where the real problem is. Raymond, where the real problem exists, and the reason this gap is getting wider and wider, and I'm not really sure what to do about it, is because the generation of kids that are growing up now, they're looking at parents who don't have conversations with people with whom they disagree. And these kids growing up now, they're not aware that there ever has been any other way of doing things other than this hurtful social media and this, way of, it drives me nuts to see people watching something that could be good for them, and yet the entire time they're watching it or reading it, all they're thinking about is some smart aleck remark they can write down after they read it, and then come back 5 minutes later and see if somebody wrote something about their smart aleck remark, and then fire off something to them. And before you know, the whole neighborhood is fighting. But the whole neighborhood's online. Nobody really knows anybody. Nobody's scared of getting punched, so they'll say whatever they want. And words are just as damaging to people, maybe more so when they're written down, than they ever were on a school, on a schoolyard playground. So I think the art of conversation, the art of, manners, and to be able to talk to people that we disagree with, or talk to people that we're different from, because there are so many people out there that are just listening to someone with an agenda who tells them basically what they will think, and they stick with it, and they'll go down in flames with it. We just don't want them to take our whole society down in flames when they go. So let's you and I, I mean, this is part of why on the professional noticer we say shake hands with a kid. Shake hands with the kids you meet. Think, guys. We got to think how we're raising this generation. And so at this point, at least, there's still a lot of people that are hiring and firing who are not impressed with a fist bump. So they still got to know how to shake hands and some other things that we can be good at getting in their lives and making happen. So thank you, Raymond. Thanks so much for the question. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Hey, here's the thought. I know you can use Google to find the length of Australia's coastline, or the answer to what is that thing in the mouth of the bird on Mexico's flag. But quickly, where do you seek wisdom? Hey, say you memorize an encyclopedia. Does that help you as a parent? Does it create peace in your family? What if you go back to college and get 7 different degrees? Would you be able to earn enough money in your lifetime to equal what you spent on an education or the time you lost in the workforce? Here's the deal. Pure knowledge, without the wisdom to apply that knowledge in the proper way, is more than useless. Sometimes it's flat out harmful. So again, yes, you can do a doctoral thesis on the average dietary needs of jeweled caterpillars living in the Amazon rainforest, but where do you seek wisdom? Allow me to suggest wisdomharbor.com. That's wisdom, Harbor, harbor with an O-U-R. Go there now to be welcomed by a friend of yours and to get a free 5-minute guided tour. wisdomharbor.com. Our next question is from Marina. She's from Kansas. Let's listen.
Hi, Andy. This is Marina from Kansas. Thanks for all you have taught me in so many areas of my life. I know you fly a lot in your work. I am a flight attendant and keep hoping I'll see you walk onto one of my flights. I have often wondered what you might do in certain situations. Obviously, you must notice things about other people as you travel. Do you ever tap them on the shoulder and fix their lives? Thanks.
Hi, Marina. I am surprised that I haven't run into you too. I see a lot of flight attendants that I have flown with before. We'll see each other and look at each other. Or a lot of times they'll look at me and go, "Where do I know you from?" And I always say, "We went to high school together." I don't think so, but I'll see you sometime. I am sure. It's a great question. And I guess I kind of know why you asked it, because as a flight attendant, I've watched you guys work, and you guys work hard. I mean, people have no idea how hard it is to deal with a crowd of people and continue to smile, even though crazy things are being done and crazy things are being said. I watch you guys. I know what you're doing. And again, I think I know why you asked the question. And you're right. I do notice things about other people as I travel. And you know what? It is rare that I tap somebody on the shoulder and, as you say, fix their lives. And I almost never do as Andy Andrews. Now, if that makes sense. I almost never. I'll just say I never do as Andy Andrews unless they already know me and ask a specific question. But you're asking, do I notice things about other people and tap them on the shoulder and say, "Hey, come here, let me fix this"? Certainly not as Andy Andrews. Now, as the guy sitting in 15D, yeah, I might. I just don't. I don't think people welcome experts quickly when they're being surprised. Now, people who are just around, that's a different thing. But for somebody to come up and say, I've worked with computers all my life, and if I may take yours just up here to the captain's galley, I'll be back within a few minutes. They're not letting it go. They're not going to let you have it. Okay, but if you're sitting around them and you're hearing a problem that they have, or you as a flight attendant are overhearing, you couldn't help but overhear some stuff. And, you will have the opportunity. And again, I may be reading too much into this, but I really think that you asked me, do I notice things when I'm traveling? And do I tap them on the shoulder and fix their lives? I really think you asked me that to help you figure out how you would do it. And you know what? I do think you should occasionally do it. You have to pick your times, all right? But if I'm the guy, just in the seat, kind of across the aisle and up a little bit, and I'm hearing some stuff and I'm hearing some people struggle with some stuff, or I'm hearing them talk about something they can't figure out, or if there's an issue with the child, or if there's something, I mean, if I hear that, you know, in their spirits that they're genuinely looking, or these are nice people, or I'm not really sure just on the spur of the moment here what my criteria is, but if I feel like it would be comfortable for them that I do so, I'll turn around and I'll say, "Hey, excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear you. And do I understand that you're wondering about so-and-so and so-and-so? And this may have no meaning in here at all, but I just got through reading a book about that, or I heard a guy talking about that, but I don't ever say, I'm Andy Andrews, and I've written some books, and I have a podcast, and, over the years, I've kind of become an expert at that just because I've dealt with it so much, but I am an expert, so go ahead, fire away. Tell me what you would like to know. I don't do that in any way or, form or fashion. And so I think, Marina, I think I can answer this very quickly. I think that knowing how you guys work, you can't help but overhear. And I think there will be times where you, as the flight attendant, have the authority to, if you sense somebody just personally going through something, I think there's no issue in the world. I think it's great that you might ease to their row and kneel down and talk to them for a little bit. Or, almost everybody on a longer flight anyway gets up and goes to the bathroom at some point, and people are standing in line, and it would be pretty easy for you to ease by somebody and say, "Hey, I'm sorry I couldn't help it over here, and I have, whatever answer it is." But I would make sure that answer is given very humbly, because we want people to, if we do have wisdom, and we know, right? I mean, that's not bragging to say that King Solomon wrote that the joy of a person's life can be had by dispensing wisdom to other people in situations that will benefit them. And so if that's the joy of a person's life, then they've got to know that they have some wisdom to do it. And, and so I sense that you have wisdom, which has a lot of perspective in it. And I also know that you have a position that is one of the most physically demanding positions, and certainly one of the most mentally demanding. And anybody who is sitting out there and listening to this and going, "A flight attendant?" You just haven't traveled a lot, or if you have, you haven't been looking around. I was on a flight not too long ago, and Marina, it's the very first time I've got like 4 million miles on one airline, 2 on another. I had 1 million miles on Eastern when they collapsed years ago. It's just, I've flown a lot. And I was on the first flight ever a couple of weeks ago where somebody was in the bathroom, and the flight attendants, usually if you're landing, the flight attendants say, "Get out of the bathroom. Come on, we got to get everybody seated down." The flight attendant kind of did the "get out of the bathroom" thing. Come on, and then knocked and opened the door a little bit, and I could hear them talking, and I couldn't hear what anybody was saying, but she glanced over at me, and then she said, okay, where were you sitting?" And whoever it was told her, and so she said, "Okay, all right," and she closed the door, and we landed with this person in the bathroom. I've never ever seen that done before. And as the flight attendant was kind of getting everything ready and zipped up and all like this, she was kind of running around a little bit while we were on the on the, we'd already landed and we're coming around. And so now she's going to a seat and grabbing some stuff out of the overhead. And she stopped by me and said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Well, I saw that we landed with somebody in the bathroom. I've never seen that before." And she said, "Yeah, it's a teenager, and his mother was murdered, and he is flying into the city that she was murdered in, and they're meeting him at the airport, and he's terrified." And, I thought at that moment, I thought, all these people on this plane, a pretty long flight, and got all the way through this flight and never knew that kid was on here and suffering. I never knew. And it just makes me more aware that there are stories all around us, that there are people in need all around us. Maybe somebody hasn't got a family member that's been murdered or anything, but there are lesser things that are still life-altering and mind-numbing. And many times a smile and a little bit of casual conversation can be what they need. We can change things for so many people. Marina, I hope I do run into you. And so just pop me on the back and say, "Hey, I'm Marina from Kansas." I'll know exactly who you are. Hey, I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing the tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk, shake hands with the kids you meet, and make sure you have an answer to the question one Marina would probably be interested in: exactly what shape is the sky? And so, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Cappuccinos provided for the cast and crew by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by the Society for the Protection of Eggs. SPE, as it is sometimes known, is a bona fide powerhouse in the world Washington's food lobby. Bargaining for everything they can get, it's results they want to deliver to the fine people who raise the chickens who lay the eggs. The Society for the Protection of Eggs believes that the egg itself is a jewel of nature. It was not an apple Eve ate in the Garden of Eden, they believe. It was an egg. These are the people fighting the fight, doing what they can to protect the egg for the next generation. But the fight, they say, won't be easy. Homer T. Watson, president of this year's society, states, "If we don't get this right, most of you people will continue to have eggs broken in their little cartons." So, why should the egg be singled out for danger? Why are eggs put in a cheap styrofoam rack that won't even latch? But screwdrivers are packaged in material so hard you can't get your screwdriver out without your chainsaw. Someday, the society believes things will turn around, and the egg will be treated with the honor and respect it deserves. That's the Society for the Protection of Eggs.